Okay, so today we're going to be doing a Hot Frog worm tray. I'm going to start with this tray here. This is from the Hot Frog Worm Farm that you can get at Amazon. You can see the tray has holes in the bottom for the worms to crawl up through and migrate to the top tray when we get this one set up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we need some of this shredded cardboard that I've cut up. So you can see here, we have a lot of this stuff here that we're going to put into it. We've got some cocoa over here. So this is basically cocoa coir. You can get that from pretty much any gardening store. And we've got some food scraps we're going to add to it. So the first thing we're going to do here is I have a piece of paper here. We're going to line the bottom of this. This is to keep things from going out the bottom of the holes. Just clean this stuff out of here. Okay, and then we're going to set that there, and that'll keep the cardboard and the cocoa coir from falling out the bottom of the tray. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take a bunch of this shredded cardboard and newspaper that I have, and I'm going to add it in here. Let's get into this. Don't make too big a mess. Move that around. Get a couple more handfuls. This stuff is important. This is basically carbon for the worms to eat. So they will eat this stuff right up and use it for a food source. Okay, take a little bit out. I'm only going to fill this one up about halfway because this is going to be my working tray, as it's called. My working tray is the one that I'm going to be adding food to, and I'm going to be trying to encourage the worms to migrate up. So we're going to want our worms to come up into this tray, and then we can clear out the bottom trays that are full of worm castings that we're looking for. Okay, so take this old food that I've got here going. Okay, then we're going to add some of this cocoa to it. So I'm going to take some handfuls of this. This is nice and moist. That's important for the worms. You want to make sure the worms are nice and moist. We're going to stir this stuff up in here. So we are going to have to add water to this after, because this cardboard is extremely dry. The cocoa coir is hydrated. However, it's not going to be enough to hydrate all of this carbon paper and the cocoa coir. Mix in here. I want to mix this stuff up really good. Make sure we don't have any clumpy spots of the paper. Sometimes this paper stuff will clump up sometimes. You get a big clump like that in your worm bin. So clump this stuff all up around. Definitely need more cocoa. Get more cocoa coir. Stuff is basically from coconut husks that are ground up. Neutral pH. Mix it up really good. Probably enough cocoa coir here. Okay. Even it out a little bit. All right. So got that good. So what we're going to want to do is I like to add some of this in. This is basically rock dust. This is for the worms' gizzards. So worms don't have stomach acid and such like we do. So basically this rock dust will be ingested by the worms, and they'll use it in their gizzards essentially to grind up the food that I'm going to be adding. So I like to sprinkle some of this stuff on top. This is basically just ground up rock, essentially. Sprinkle it around. Here. A good amount of it in here. Okay, so that's all added in. Done with that. Okay, so now I'm going to want to mix that stuff in here. Okay, so once we have it all mixed up really good, flatten it out again. Get it all in there in the corners. Now we're going to put our food in. So these are old food scraps that I froze in the freezer. It has some old lettuce in there and some old ground up eggshells, and it doesn't smell all that nice. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna dump it out. Worms absolutely love it. The more rotten it is, the better the worms will enjoy it. So we got it all over there. An old piece of lettuce or something. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to bury this underneath. So we want to keep this down underneath here. This will keep the fruit flies out, and it will also keep other little buggers you don't want in here. We want a lot of things in here, but we don't want bad bugs, or not as good of bugs. So we'll bury this little tomato in here, this little grape, put it all down in here. We'll mix it around a little bit. Okay, so now essentially our worm bin is ready to go. So we have our cardboard pieces in here, we have our cocoa coir in here. We mixed a little bit of rock dust in here in order for the worms, help the worms break down their food that I just buried. And of course we have the food that we just buried in here. So this will be my top working tray. And this is where I'm hoping the worms will migrate up to at some point once they run out of food in the lower trays that I have down below this.